Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm here with Memento before their second game of the week against Misfits. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good. Despite the loss yesterday, I still feel pretty confident going into today's games.
Yeah, but still, you beat G2, you beat Splice already. What are your strengths going into this game?
I mean, the win against like G2, Splice, I think we had a lot of momentum or some, I don't know, kind of say, and they were pretty bad back then at least. But I feel, I'm not really sure what our strengths are. I think we had a really good early game yesterday. We're just going to look to replicate that and just do our best and see what happens.
And more precisely for you, you'll be going up against Maxlore in the jungle. What are your strengths personally as a player going into this matchup?
I don't know, Maxlore is kind of similar to me, but he just has a lot more brain than me. So I don't know, I definitely think he's a really strong jungler. I always respect a jungler who has a lot of brain, and I'm really excited to face him. Like strength-wise, I think I can read him pretty well. Even though like he's really smart, I can still match him, I believe.
And overall, we're into 4th week already. How do you reflect on your performances so far? What can we expect more from Roccat?
I don't know, we're kind of a team that improves really fast, and we're all super motivated and we work really well together. Even though last week it was quite some rough games, I was inting my team, more to say. But this week I feel a lot more confident, and I think we can only go up from here. There's no more downhill.
Well, good for you, and good luck, obviously, for the game upcoming. Thank you very much for joining me before the game. And back to Drakos and the Analyst at the desk.
Thank you very much, Laure. Memento, battle of the big brain, the big European brain.
I like it. Maxlore, big brain. He respects people with big brains.
Memento, not quite as big, but we're going to find out who the biggest is today. We've talked a lot about this team and their quest to reach the top of Europe, and while they did lose yesterday against Vitality, it does feel like we have been seeing some improvements for Roccat after their rough week last week.
Memento talked about the early game was better yesterday, and I definitely agree there, because in the past, and by in the past I mean 2 weeks ago, Roccat could only really win through pure late game. They are trying to move away from that style. We see much more like split push, these kind of things. But obviously yesterday they also kind of relied on Memento.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to look back on Memento's performance. Double Baron steals, baby. I mean, this is a game-winning kind of moment. Sadly, though, they did not win the game free, so talk to me, because Memento did steal 2 Barons. It was an incredible individual performance, but it was not enough. What happened here?
I mean, we heard New Dragon PGL yesterday that, you know, if you have a 1-3-1 comp and your jungler that steals 2 Barons and you still don't win, there is something terribly wrong with the team. So, yeah, they didn't have the confidence and they didn't have the cohesive unit in 1-3-1, because 1-3-1 is one of the hardest comps to play.
I think there's a lot of times when they were knocking on the door, and then when they actually needed to go 5 and just get 1 or 2 kills to use the super minions to finish the game, they didn't get those kills. They didn't win that fight when it got that far into the game. And Vitality wanted to obviously push out of their base much earlier, but because they kept losing Barons and had to deal with Blanc and Prophet constantly split pushing in the side lanes, Vitality could never leave the lane, so they were stuck defending. And Roccat couldn't win the 5-on-5, and that gave us this really long game that ended with, of course, the TP play from many Truepacks.
And while some of these stats aren't that impressive, I still want to highlight Prophet. I feel like people are still giving him that Gnar, despite what you said yesterday.
I said, don't give him Gnar.
Give it to him.
But, you know, he played pretty well. He played pretty well. There were some hiccups from getting 1v1 versus GP. He shouldn't try to fight GP with the Mega Gnar, but he was there. He was constant pressure on the team, and he knows how to split push well. So, yeah, don't give him Gnar. Just ban it, give him something else, because he won't do so much on something else.
Well, now I think it's interesting because we look at their opponents on the opposite side. They're going up against Misfits Gaming, and so far the split Misfits have relied a ton on Hans Sama to carry them in late game teamfights. But yesterday, they tried something completely different. They went with a totally different strategy in draft, put a lot less onus on Hans Sama. So let's talk about this. How do we actually feel about this draft and this decision coming in from Misfits?
Yeah, it was obviously very risky. I think when you pick Rengar in almost any draft, there's a lot of risk involved, because if it's not executed properly in terms of snowballing, it gets really hard to win late game fights with this jungler later on. So they tried to go for like pushing bot lane, control mid lane with the Ryze, and then have this Rengar that could force engages with an Ornn later. And they did win the mid game fights when they were supposed to, and they got ahead in the game, but Misfits, they do slow down a lot when it comes to start playing around Baron specifically and getting that extra lead they need to actually win the game.
we could see that they're just not that as confident with the playstyle they were playing yesterday than with playing against around Hansama when he gets a hyper carry. You know, if you give Ezreal to Hansama, you have to play around mid lane, around top lane, Alphari, Sencux. These guys have to step up. They have to be the shining lights to carry, and they're just not as comfortable as Hansama on a hyper carry.
It is a good thing, though, they're trying all these different kind of styles, different kind of drafts, because they've already picked up quite some wins. We know they can easily get enough to make it into playoffs, or at least I feel like they can easily get enough to make playoffs. So testing yourself in different kind of comps that you're practicing in scrims as well, and just make sure you can do it on stage, is perfectly fine for a team like Misfits, who's, of course, looking towards a Spring Split final and later on going to Worlds once again.
And it is one of the luxuries of performing so well early in the split, of being so close to the top of the standings, up until, you know, they did lose some games yesterday, is that they can afford to experiment a little bit more. But is this what we want to see from Misfits today? Do we want to see them try this 1-3-1 again, clean it up a little bit after getting those early game leads if they can? Or do we want to see them go back to the protect the Hansama style that worked so well for them?
I'm fine seeing them play more early game again. I think at Worlds they succeeded with a lot of early game comps against the Ornn sensor meta that, of course, was superior late game. And they got really good at closing out games very cleanly. It is hard against all this wave clear there is in the current meta, but I like the fact they're trying it to perfect this style.
For me, Misfits as a team, you know, they were at Worlds. They played versus SKT. They gave SKT 5 games. You know, and their focus should be at Worlds, at winning the split. It shouldn't be at winning every single game. They have to improve. They have to get more playstyles, get more comfortable with different playstyles, and that way they will set up themselves for winning the split or potentially winning the split.
And the thing that excites me about this matchup, too, is we have two teams who are both ready and willing to play 1-3-1, who are both struggling to execute. And I want to see what actually happens when it comes into a game where they're both trying to run the same composition up against each other.
Oh, always becomes very snowbally then. Because if you suddenly fall behind and you can't play the side lanes, your split push comp gets really, really weak very quickly. We might see a Roccat focus on the early game. Memento highlighted that in the interview we just had with Laure here just before the game, before we got to us. We said, you know what, early game yesterday was fine. We can try that again. But I think the strongest Roccat draft is their late game teamfight draft. It is easier to execute. It can set up HeaQ to do well in late game teamfights as well. And it's how they picked up most of their wins so far. But the fact they're trying these split push comps, again, it's not a bad thing. But I think a team like Roccat needs to get as many wins as possible as early on if they want to lock top 6. I think Misfits have a bit more time there.
A bit more of a track record of success in the past to not take those risks. Now, of course, I'm curious to see what's going to happen, so let's just get right into it. Roccat, they're looking to turn things around with a win against Misfits. Here are Medic and Vedius to get us into game.
Thank you, Drakos. I am joined by Vedius. Let's check out the starting lineups. Coming up on the blue side, we've got Roccat!
Yes, we do.
Yeah, and they're on the blue side, and we'll get to them in just a second. The lineup will come up. I'm amazed. These animated lineups, Vedius. They warned
so
me. I was blown away by it. And so many strong members on this team as well.
He looks so sad. He's been playing really well.
He looks really happy there, though.
Perfect. There we go. This Roccat squad, you heard a lot about them from the analyst desk, and they're looking to secure themselves a win up against Misfits, the Summit finalists, who, after coming back after Worlds, definitely look good. I did praise them as being the current best team in Europe. Right now, my argument doesn't have many legs to it, so I might have to pivot that over the next few weeks. But I think that they have been struggling a little bit. I still think Sencux in the middle lane is not performing to a level that Misfits as a team need him to perform at. But also, the bigger issue was that the communication just felt completely off yesterday for Misfits. I had a chance to talk to Moosvi. I was like, okay, explain to me the draft. Why did you choose to go for something like an Ezreal over the Tristana? Like, what was the logic behind the Rengar? And he said, you know what, our draft was fine. You saw, we had a 9k gold lead, right? That was way bigger than what we actually planned. Around that point in the game, we were expecting like a 6k gold lead. That was the expectation. But then for some reason, my team just kept fighting. I don't know why. They should have played 1-3-1. They had stronger side lanes. They had plenty of wave clear mids. Like, everything was going well. I don't know why they felt the need to keep fighting. And I think he gave them a stern talking to after the game. And they should come back into today's games feeling more refreshed and looking to get themselves a win.
Roccat, on the other hand, played up against Vitality yesterday, and it ended in a incredible affair as Mini-Trupax teleported into their base
really
to finish it off.
Very back and forth. Memento stole a lot of Barons. The team played very, very well. They utilized an early game lead very effectively. But it got to this late game point where they just could not close things out. and we'll see whether or not they continue to go with that early game style. Will they pivot more towards the late game? I think that one of Blanc's best champions is the Azir. His team fighting with it is exceptional, and I'd love to see Roccat invest in him once again, because I think when the going gets tough, this guy really can step up for his team.
There is the Galio ban, something we've seen both Sencux and Blanc play this split. There's GP as well, and Zoe from Roccat, trying to take something out of the hands of Alphari, whose most played is Gangplank. Expect to see conventional bans usually, or?
I like that ban away from Alphari, because I think Misfits are one of the few teams in Europe that can really utilize a Gangplank really effectively. We saw Vitality utilizing it pretty well as well. And it's also one of Alphari's comfort picks. He's an individual that loves to play these carry kind of tops, but he's not about dominating his lane in the early game. He's much more about contributing more to his team as the game progresses, picking more of these scaling side lane threats. I feel like Camille is going to rise in priority for this Misfit squad, given that Gangplank has been taken off the board. Whether or not they look to early rotate it, though, is still up for debate.
Well, Kog'Maw as well removed by Roccat, the Sejuani from Misfits. So thinking of things like Azir, Ryze here, some strong mid laners, maybe needs to get pinched away from the champion pool. But there's still a lot of options for both these two teams.
Is also still up and available.
Good prediction, Vedius.
Immediately taken off the board by Misfits. So conventionally, you would expect something like the Ryze or Azir to be the early priority. We saw Blanc pick up the Ryze yesterday, and he started off the game very well, going 2-0-0. And it looks like they're going to repeat that once again. Now, you would expect the common answer to be the Azir, because you always have that, oh, Ryze's early game advantage, gets to late game, forced to split push, whereas Azir, he loses in the early game. He still has a couple levels where he can trade pretty well, but he has the better team fight value later on and can really offer more than the Ryze can later on. And it looks like Misfits just going to go for the standard meta slave, put Sencux on a champion that, to be fair, he's actually struggled quite a lot on.
He's played one game on it and was 40 CS down at the 15-minute mark when he played Azir.
That was the solo kill game against Jizuke, where he took his tower, killed him, and then swagged away.
Have to see what Misfits decide to match up alongside this Azir. Zac is a very good option, and Maxlore will lock that in for himself. We've seen Zac really rising in priority. Jankos used it incredibly well yesterday. Now Maxlore has his hands on it.
Now the cool thing you can do here if you're Roccat is Memento could actually pick a little bit more of an aggressive jungler with something like a Kha'Zix, because you already have a pushing lane with the Ryze, and you know that we saw last game, Zac can't really trade that strong in the early game. He's decided to go for the Jarvan, but you can still afford to do that, given that you will often run the Electrocute and have a lot of early burst damage. Remember yesterday, we saw Gilius invading at level 2, given that he had this pressure in the early laning phase. So I think Roccat can look to utilize the fact that they've got a strong pushing mid. Camille typically considered a strong pushing top, unless Misfits choose to answer with a Gnar, where they can get a little bit more pressure back in the laning phase.
It's really interesting to see Roccat go for the Camille this early on, because Prophet has been so good on the Gnar, so effective in that top lane, has yet to play Camille, and they decide to secure it for him. Into it, it looks like it's going to be an Ornn for Alphari.
Now remember, you can flex this Ornn. After the nerfs to the Unstoppable, some top laners have considered him to not be that good in terms of trading, and now the Camille stun can actually interrupt that, so you have a little bit more pressure during the laning phase. I actually expect it more to be in the support role, and they're saving the top lane counter to later on in the draft, seeing what the enemy support actually picks up. And I think having that flexibility is a good option here for Misfits, and now they'll start to ban away some of the strong supports like Braum and maybe even Taric that can act as effective counters to the hard engage that Misfits are building for themselves.
It also means that Roccat have to make a decision whether they do ban out some of those top laners that deal well with Camille. At the moment, they're going for the Kalista. Looking at the AD carry pool, HeaQ has played some safer AD carries, lots of Ezreal, lots of Caitlyn this split. And there is the Ezreal ban from the Misfits.
Interesting, so they don't want to give that lane power. They may look to first pick either their top laner right now or the support. I mean, sorry, the AD carry. That's the big question, so you still don't fully know where that Ornn is going to go. But with the Ezreal ban, I think that's quite interesting. Musu was telling me yesterday about how Ezreal can provide you with a lot of lane power. Even after the nerfs that Ezreal did receive against a champion like Tristana, you really do have a lot of trading and pushing power.
You have to feel that Misfits go for a Tristana here, though. AD carry pool is very pinched. There's only Caitlyn and Trist really left out of those main two.
Great prediction if he locks it in, Medic.
Oh, color caster extraordinaire.
There it is.
Evan Medic Chamberlain right here.
I have trained you well. Good spot there with the Tristana. We'll give a bit of a comfort pick for Hans Sama as well, give them a little bit more lane power. Now, you would imagine this to be paired up with the Ornn. I would expect Alphari to be saving his top lane pick for the last rotation. Looking at some of the top laners that are still available, things like the Gnar are still up and good. Vladimir could also be a potential against the Camille. Maybe he takes a gamble and goes Fiora. Don't think he will, but always a possibility.
Cho'Gath is there as well. Don't know how well that works into Camille, but it is something that Alphari is very comfortable playing. Roccat looking for their support we expect here. He talked about the Taric. Is going to get locked in for them.
I'm surprised that they decided to ban away the Ez over the Taric. I think it's because their eyes were on early rotating the Trist, and they recognized that yesterday Trist is a pretty good disengaged AD carry and hard to lock down, especially if you're running the Zac. So they said, you know what, we'll ban away the Ez, secure ourselves the Trist, and now they're just going to have to find a way to play around this Taric, which, to be fair, provided them with a lot of issues yesterday. I remember 2 big fights where that Taric ultimate swung the fight in favor of Giants, and rounding things out with the Alistar. So the Ornn will be going up top lane. Looks like Alphari will be playing a tank, and they'll be relying on Sencux and Hans Sama to be the big carries. A bit of a shift from what we've seen from this Misfits roster.
Hans Sama has been carrying them incredibly well thus far. On the other side, Roccat had Prophet in the top lane, who's played very well. HeaQ, who's putting out big DPM, even if he's not the most noticeable of carries. And then Blanc on that Ryze in the mid lane, played it very well yesterday. Really good at splitting the pressure across the map.
Now, you would expect in the early laning phase Roccat to have the pushing advantage. They have a lot of strong laners with the Ryze, the Caitlyn, and the Camille, which should allow Memento to go for these early invades and try and mitigate some of the pressure that Maxlore is going to look to exert with the Zac. However, you can't really ignore the all-in power that this composition has from Misfits. The Ornn ultimate, the Zac ultimate, the EQ engage combo from the Alistar, the Shurima shuffle from Azir. And if you're feeling really audacious, you can go for the Tristana ulti flash play knockback.
The wild turtle, I believe.
The wild turtle. Regardless, there's a lot of engage on the side of Misfits right now.
What are Roccat looking to do then? You say they've got pushing lanes. How does their composition actually work as the game progresses?
Well, again, it's all about the early game, very similar to what we saw yesterday. Their siege is really good with the Caitlyn. They can set themselves up for the 1-3-1 later on into the game. So if it goes late like it did yesterday, they have the ability to play on the side lanes, which we've seen both Blanc and Prophet can do fairly effectively.
Roccat versus Misfits, 3 and 4 versus 4 and 3. Roccat looking to even out the series as we get onto the Summoner's Rift. Even out their position in the LCS. And the Summoner's Rift has got a stopwatch. Went golden there for a second. Are you freezing as well? The camera's not on us, Vedius.
Oh, right, yeah.
Doesn't work if you do it just there.
I was doing the stopwatch impression. Thought it'd be funny. But yeah, this gives us a lot of opportunities to talk about the stuff that's going to happen in game.
So top lane is where I want to focus first. Wait, because you've got Camille and Ornn.
I want to talk about the junglers first. We can talk about top lanes after.
Okay. I'll let you go first this time, Vedius.
Jungler's really important because Memento needs to invade Zac. Zac is really good early ganks because you can never really see where he's coming from. He will max the elastic slingshot first, and when you have a lot of ganks set up in the form of Alistar, Trist in the bottom lane, you have the Shurima shuffle in the mid, you've also got an Ornn, who can be also surprisingly effective at setting up ganks in the top lane. There's a lot of setup for Misfits, so it's really important that Memento invades and shuts down the jungle.
Just quickly so that everyone knows, Blanc is switching the DPI settings on his mouse. They weren't set up optimally before the game, so he wants to make sure everything is perfect for him as he gets into this game on the Summoner's Rift. So obviously wanting to set those up properly.
3K DPI, personally. I really like my mouse.
So high.
Super sensitive.
I play 800.
Wow.
I like the flick shots.
You know, it's funny,
I'm an AWPer.
Because I was told when I first started playing League of Legends that if you have a higher API, that's what all the pros use, and I wanted to be a pro player, so I tried to copy them, And I learned to play League of Legends on an insanely high DPI, and now everyone that uses my mouse, I can't play with anything lower than 3K.
See, I was the same, and then one of my friends was like, stop doing this, play at 800, and I listened to people.
I can't, it's why my wrist is really bad right now, actually. I would highly recommend you lower DPI, because it is not good for your wrist in the long term.
As well, we're just checking to make sure Blanc's mouse can click.
That's important.
It's a very important function of a mouse.
Really, really valuable, I would say.
If it can't, we'll obviously get it sorted out, maybe get him one of his extra peripherals that we have.
Right, so you wanted to talk about Camille versus Ornn.
We've talked about Memento. He needs to invade. He needs to pressure the jungler. Yes. Camille versus Ornn. Prophet versus Alphari in this top lane.
Okay, what exactly would you like to say?
I want to know how this matchup goes, because we thought the Ornn was going to be support, and then Misfits were like, nah, it'll be fine in the top lane. It can deal with Camille.
So, I mean, the thing about Ornn is he still does a lot of what he used to do, which is he trades surprisingly well, largely because he has the shield on his W. You have a pretty easy to set up CC combo with the Q and the E. And then the moment he gets ulti, he actually has a lot of engage threat, even onto a champion like Camille that has a lot of mobility. Now, in terms of skirmishing early levels, I would give the advantage over to the Ornn. But the moment Camille gets first back, I would imagine she'll either go for an early Tiamat or an early Sheen. That's when she should start winning out against this tank, because tanks unfortunately aren't designed to be strong in a side lane. And while Ornn does have a lot of wave clear and wave pressure, the moment that Camille gets a couple of extra items, she'll start winning out in this 1v1. And I think that suits Prophet quite nicely. We've seen that he is this kind of split push player. He's an individual that likes to be ahead during the laning phase, and I think that he's on a champion in a matchup that he's set up to do this. But at the same time, Alphari, he is someone that prefers playing carries, but again, he's not an individual that gets his leads during the laning phase. He prefers to hold his own and just get out of laning phase unscathed, and then transition his value more towards the mid and late game, where he can offer a little bit more value to his team. He's always TPing in, he's always working very closely with Maxlore, and we'll see how that translates into game as we return back to the room.
You can see all the players clicking furiously there.
Clearly his mouse does work. You can see Blanc moving.
Tiny steps. That's a low DPI right there. The support battle. This is the most important part of playing support.
Norskaren's even doing. It's gems versus bells. The ultimate battle as the crowd gets involved. Guys, don't encourage them. Observers, come on.
I think they're allowed to encourage them, in all honesty. This is so fun. Okay, now we've ruined it. We've ruined it. Vedius, yesterday Misfits played up against Giants, and they struggled quite a lot when it came to the later portion of the game. They were doing so well, and then they fell off a cliff.
Yeah, that's exactly the analogy I had in my head. You know, they're driving a
bungee jumping.
Yeah, except the cord broke at the end, and that's where they unfortunately lost the game. Misfits, they had a massive gold lead up against Giants, and as we said in the pre-game, they just kept forcing fights against a team fight composition from Giants that just ripped them apart. They couldn't team fight, they needed to play the 1-3-1, and this time around they've just said, aha, if we have to team fight, let's build a team fight composition. So now they have a lot more engage, they have a lot more scaling, and this composition is very much set up to try and force Roccat into those fights. And I actually think this suits Misfits very nicely, because one of the things that I've always praised Misfits for is their ability to play around Baron. Back at Worlds and during the regular season of last year, even when they were struggling, Misfits was a team that was always very intelligent around that Baron. Largely because, as Maxlore said in his interview yesterday, he doesn't like to take those 50-50 smites. They'll always disengage, and they're very patient around that objective. Whereas Roccat has shown this split that they actually, too, are very good at setting up and controlling around that objective. So I'm looking forward to seeing these two teams clash that rely a lot on that big objective and how well they set up and play around it.
Saw Memento get a couple of steals away on the Baron yesterday against Gilius. Now he's invading the jungle, but Maxlore's been smart here. He's using that slightly bigger brain. Started up at the red side, now has moved down towards the blue side to avoid any early confrontations with Memento.
So those of you that have stuck around with us for the first game, the game between HeaQ and Schalke, and now, you'll notice the difference in Maxlore's pathing. He started on the top side because he knows that Roccat have a pushing lane top and a pushing lane mid, which means that if Memento is going to invade anywhere, it'll be the top side of the jungle. Roccat, though, now moving up into the river, could get caught.
Stretching Strike's going to bring him back. Mikyx doesn't land the combo. It's a great stun from Norskeren.
I like that. It interrupted the combo halfway through, and Mikyx ended up saving Norskeren from what could have been a dire situation. Maxlore, I don't think he wants to do this trade.
He just wants the scuttle crab. Please leave me alone.
But yes, so this is smart jungle pathing, and now notice here, he's moving into the enemy jungle. He feels that his bottom lane should have a little bit more control. Sencux is now pushing out his wave, and instead of invading, he's decided to go back to base.
Pushing in the bottom lane, Misfits are going to put some pressure onto HeaQ and Norskeren. A 9 CS lead, but there's a big wave pushing in for HeaQ to try and farm up underneath this tower. It's a minion dematerializer on Hansama alongside the unsealed spellbook, whereas HeaQ on this Caitlyn has gone for the fleet footwork.
Interesting. We've been seeing that a lot from Caitlyn's. Earlier in the day, Kobe decided to run with the unsealed spellbook, yes, so that he could swap over to the teleport. The fact that Hansama has that available means that we're very likely to see him go for an early teleport, push in the wave a lot, expend a lot of his mana, use the minion dematerializers to get a lot of pushes off, and then swap out later. Maxlore looking for an early gank.
Blanc has to flash away from it, does get the route on towards Maxlore as well, but that is a very worthwhile trade for the Misfits jungler.
And this is why we said it was really important for Memento to try and invade and shut down Maxlore in the early game, similar to what Schalke were able to do to Cadril last game, because you can take these innovative jungle strats, and that was a pretty straightforward one. He just sat in the brush, leaped out, was able to force the flash out, but because of the range and the elastic slingshot, it gives you a lot of opportunities to force these early games.
Mikyx going in for the engage once again, stun onto HeaQ. Hansama's trading here, but the explosive shot isn't going to do too much as he's forced away, has to use the jump. Dazzle lands only onto Mikyx though, into a trap. HeaQ trying to get some damage down onto Mikyx here, the knock-up. And Misfits are getting forced away from a lane even when they make the engage.
So you've got to be really careful when trading against the Taric in these extended little fights, because every time he uses an ability, he procs his passive, which gives him a quick double hit. And every time he uses that double hit, it generates a charge on his Bastion, which is his heal. So you actually have consistent heals coming out over and over and over again onto this Taric, which means that while Hansama initially looked like he was winning that trade, the longer the fight went on, the more health that Caitlyn was getting back, and Hansama wasn't. So you end up winning out on that trade, but unfortunately they don't have TP, so Hansama doesn't mind taking that trade because he can just immediately come back into the lane, and they won't lose much as a result.
Both the top laners have teleported back into the lane as well. Prophet, across the course of the split, has kind of been an unsung hero for Roccat in a lot of cases. His laning phase incredibly strong. You can see jungle proximity is low for both of these junglers, but the forward percentage for Prophet, he likes to push past that middle portion of the map and really try and pressure his lane opponent.
And this really identifies what we were talking about earlier on. Look at the jungle proximity that you're seeing from Prophet as well. He does not get a huge amount of jungle attention, yet he's still able to build up very significant leads during the laning phase. And also, we talk about the forward percentage. The reason why Alphari's is so low is because he often picks these champions that aren't set up for it. We've got to go back to mid.
Maxlore's going to get the jump in with the elastic slingshot, but the gold comes out and Blanc escapes.
Outplayed. Soon that will not be available on the next patch, but for now, Blanc is able to escape. Bit of a trade happening down in the bottom lane, but we got to go back to that top lane point and talk about the difference between Alphari and Prophet, because this guy plays much more towards his team. And typically you'll notice his CSD is actually fairly low, but his most played champion is Gangplank. And considering he's only down on average 1.6 CS, that's actually really good considering how weak Gangplank is considered during the early laning phase.
Prophet has a minor CS lead at the moment, but nothing too monumental in this top lane. And haven't really seen that invade from Memento that we were expecting to. Maxlore's starting to get towards that level 6 mark. So Memento now trying to just find avenues into the jungle. There's not many opportunities for him. Maxlore's done a very good job of outsmarting his opposing jungle.
Would love to see a play towards that enemy blue buff. You can see Caitlyn and Taric already have push right now. Norskeren should move into the enemy jungle and drop a ward or two. Then you move with the Ryze, given that his ultimate is coming up soon, and you should be able to get pressure around subjective and just steal it away. It's a nice thing to take off an Azir, and it will give you a bit of early pressure advantage too.
See, we all thought he was going to ward. He just wants some extra mana.
Wait for it.
Oh.
No.
Memento's going to push forward, though.
Okay.
So they do have a ward here. They know the blue's there. They've teleported back into the mid lane as well. They still have to push in the bot lane.
Now, I don't like the fact that Memento's doing this by himself. That's a little risky. But it seems that Maxlore has decided to focus in on clearing out his walls. And this will be a secure. So the full plan of what I was expecting didn't quite come to fruition, but they got the objective that we talked about, and I like the fact that they make that play, deny the blue buff away from Sencux, and give Blanc a slight edge over his lane opposition.
And Maxlore's going to put down a control ward here as he looks to jump in on Blanc, who does have the flash. Sencux shuffles in. Memento here from the side as well. Blanc's going to flash on towards Sencux, who cleanses it away. Jump back with the Let's Bounce. Memento is going to be fine for the time being. Mikyx trading down towards this bottom side. Does have the level 6 as well. There's the stun from the trample, the knockback as well. And Hans Sama, steps on a trap at the edge of the bush. He's going to have to jump away. Flash! Can't quite connect.
Misplay there from Hans Sama. Didn't see the trap and wasn't expecting that amount of damage. Now, Memento, good counter gank in the middle lane. I saw the pings coming down and they were like, oh, hang on, that control wood was just dropped. I reckon Maxlore's going to come for a kind of gank in the middle lane. See a bit more training down in the bot.
Explosive charges on Norskeren. The heal used early, but another trap on Hans Sama. Doesn't have the heal, of course. He's only got the TP. HeaQ isn't going to go any deeper for this, but Misfits bot lane is not performing as well as we often see it.
They keep trying to go for these trades, which the Taric and Caitlyn are able to win out. Again, remember those extended trades with all the healing and the stuns coming out from Taric. It's making it difficult for Misfits to really win out. Taric often does well into those melee supports and is proving it once again as to why. Maxlore now recognizes, oh no, my blue buff has been stolen. And will unfortunately have to walk through the river in shame.
It's interesting though, because although Hans Sama and Mikyx are losing the 2v2 trades in the bot lane, because they have the teleport, they can just get back even quicker into the lane, and it means there's about a 15 CS lead here for Hans Sama and some damage on the tower as well. Could even look for the first tower down towards this bottom side because Maxlore is here.
And this is the risk that you run by going for the fleet footwork. It will offer you an extra bit of mobility in the late game fights, and with all this engage, it does make sense. But the early pressure that is going in favor of Misfits is really starting to grow.
Do they go for this? The minion wave is a long way away. They decide against it. Just retreat back towards their own side of the Summoner's Rift. Let's have a quick look across the lanes here. Vedius top lane starting to swing in favor of Prophet. He's about 10 CS up in that lane. Mid lane, 22 farm ahead for Blanc. And Sencux once again is struggling to actually keep up in the laning phase.
Typically, you would expect a slight CS lead in favor of Ryze, but I'm a little surprised that it's this big. Feels like Sencux is showing a little bit too much respect to Blanc, perhaps, but I guess you kind of have to when you have two pushing lanes and an enemy jungler that can just come in and blow you up at a moment's notice. So for the time being, he's just going to farm away. I definitely feel that Sencux really does step up once you reach the mid-game. Once he starts being involved in team fights, that's where you actually start to see some of the true strength of this individual. Laning phase, definitely not one of them, though.
And his shuffles have been pretty strong thus far. Has caught out Blanc a couple of times, making him burn the
coming down
stopwatch.
I feel like they want to try and use this Ryze ulti to secure an early tower. Camille also roaming down
towards that mid lane. Pushing lanes happening here for Roccat. We talked about it. It allows Memento to be a little bit more aggressive. Blanc pushes in the mid lane. Camille is going to roam her way back up towards top. It's only a Cloud Drake, so I don't really expect to see much action around there, but getting the first tower of the game is a great signal of intent for you for the rest of the matchup. And Roccat are looking for it. They only have about a 700 gold lead, but it's not nothing. They have an advantage.
Both top laners have TP as well, and they want to save it in the event that this bot lane play does occur. Misfits are pinging out on the Cloud Drake. They recognize that Roccat have control over it, and they're expecting it to be started. The question is, how will Maxlore respond? Memento praised him for having the bigger brain. Can he use that bigger brain to stop this early objective from Roccat?
You see Blanc thinks he needs to put some pressure on here because Memento was on the Cloud Drake. He's going to take some damage in response as Memento comes in down towards the Dragon, though there is a fight as Mikyx has engaged on towards HeaQ and Norskeren. HeaQ has no mana. We know how dangerous that is for a Caitlyn, but Mikyx is now caught out the flank from Misfits. Cosmic Radiance, here comes Prophet onto the backline. This is going to be a double. You have to feel on Sama's dead. Mikyx flashes, but the follow-up flashes come in, and Roccat get two.
The TP play was so much quicker from Prophet than it was from Alphari. Immediately he came up from behind Misfits and was able to get an extremely effective collapse down onto the bottom lane. Really good play there from Roccat, getting themselves an early lead and doing what their composition needs to do.
And it's not just a single member, it's all of Roccat working as a team. Blanc pushing in mid, bringing Maxlore across. It opens up the river. Such good stuff from Roccat here. They're going to get the first tower as well. And with it, a 3,000 gold lead over Misfits.
This is what you would expect from this Roccat composition. Love that TP there from Prophet. Also, his ability to interrupt the Tristana jump, something that you very rarely see. So, Misfits, they go for this gank in the middle lane. They cannot commit to it. And while all that's happening, Mikyx feels that they can get this collapse down, but what you don't see is this TP coming up from behind them, just below the river. Hansama sees it way too late. He tries to go for the jump, but he mistimes it. He ends up getting stunned and locked down, and that allows Roccat to continue their chase onto Mikyx and secure themselves 2 very quick kills. And both of them go on to Prophet, the guy that's designed for split pushing. He, as an individual, loves to be in a side lane and loves to just draw that cross-map pressure. Unfortunately, Alphari is not a champion that can match it. This is not the Fiora versus Camille like we saw earlier in the day. Fiora will win this 1v1 on the side lane, and it's only going to get rougher as the game progresses.
Well, he's going to try and trade in. Has got Iceborne Gauntlet first on this Ornn. Bit of armor, bit of extra damage in these trades.
Also mana, a very big thing that's important for Ornn, given that he does spam a lot of abilities. You can very quickly run out of it. But Alphari doing pretty well to trade against Prophet as of right now. Now they want to secure themselves the blue buff. This time around, Roccat not setting their eyes on stealing that one away. Their focus is on getting that top lane tower, the next objective on their list to secure.
They did lose the Rift Tower, as we said. They can, however, continue to push in. BF Sword Pickaxe completed on both AD carries. Hansama and Mikyx giving a lot of respect to Norskeren here, who has had a very good split thus far. One of the standout rookies, I think most people would agree, especially his Braum play. And now his Taric as well. 15 minutes in, 2 towers to 0 in favor of Roccat. And Misfits are starting to fall behind. Roccat have shown us how well they play when they are ahead.
Remember that both these teams coming off the back of a loss from day 1. One of them is going to go 0-2, which is going to be a big deal in terms of the standings. Roccat, they had a good start to the split. They were sitting near the top, and now they're in the middle of the pack. And Misfits in the opposite situation. They were at the top for a while. Now they're at the risk of falling down. A lot of important standings implications ride on the outcome of this result. And also, you got to think about what it means for the mentality of both these teams.
Especially for Misfits, they have such a good opportunity to separate themselves from some of the other playoff contenders. You know, Spice were at 4-4, HeaQ at 4-4. If Misfits could get to 5-3, you really put a little bit of breathing room between you and the chasing pack. Roccat try to even themselves out in that tied position on the 4-4 scoreline, and they seem to be doing a very good job of it thus far. A lot of people, as they came into the split, would have said it's just a ragtag bunch, a team that doesn't really have any coordination, doesn't really have any obvious identity. They have definitely shown that is not the case.
I mean, Roccat, as an org, they have this tendency to surprise, right? They are that talent factory that always produce individuals that somehow make it onto some of the more accoladed teams, as it were. You know, we've talked a lot about the history of both these teams, but now we've got to get focused in on the game, because Misfits want to be proactive. They want to try and get a few added towers of their own.
Rift Tower coming in from behind the tower here. It's going to get locked up and isn't going to get much damage down here at all. I'm not quite sure the intent behind that play. It was there.
2 members top, so now they can have a 5-man movement over to the mid, but here comes an engage.
All of the force shot, Sencux is dead, HeaQ gets it, and now we're going to see Prophet use the Hexagon to maybe and get out of the fight. A double knock-up, and Summer just about eking his way away, but Blanc's not going to let him escape. Cosmic Radiance comes down, Alphari in the backline, Mikyx getting chunked out, Alphari's going to fall, double knockout. Prophet and HeaQ are on the chaser, and Alphari, even the shield can't save you now. Roccat get 4.
And Misfits get 0. They use the Rift Herald top to try and bait Roccat up towards that side of the map. Then they could rush down this mid tower. But Roccat just force a fight. They feel confident. They feel ready. And they're able to very quickly shut down this Misfits team and extend their lead to 7,000 at 18 minutes into the game.
It's a magnitude of advantage here. And let's look at this again, because Misfits just keep fighting.
So, Sencux just gets blown up way faster than I imagined he was expecting. He did have his flash available, decided not to use it, and the moment that Jarvan just comes in, Roccat recognize they have so much more damage at this point in the game. Prophet again with a fantastic teleport. Oh wait, my apologies, just a fantastic flank overall. And Norskeren living up as he always does, showing a lot of excitement towards the success of Roccat. This composition is reliant on getting an early lead. They're playing towards that 1-3-1 comp that they do have. And Misfits, yes, they do have the scaling advantage, they do have the ability to team fight, but typically they are pretty good at mitigating until they get that mid to late game point. But so far, they've given away a very significant lead that Roccat are looking to run away with.
HeaQ building up towards the Infinity Edge next. You've got the Abyssal Mask, parts of a Zhonya's as well for Blanc. Trinity Force already on Prophet in that side lane. It's going to be so difficult for Alphari to deal with him in any way, shape, or form. Roccat trying to solidify their position near the top of the EU LCS here. Coming up to the halfway point in the split, I don't think anyone would have expected them to be this high up. But they are definitely silencing their haters right now.
Well, there's still a long way to go. We saw them get an early lead against Vitality and then fail to close yesterday. Misfits, they've been in this position before as well against Fnatic. Against Vitality, they were at an even bigger deficit, yet they were able to find a way back into the game. And eyes will be on Hansama to step up, be the carry that he's been for this team so far. 0, 2, and 0. More deaths than this man averages per week. And it's going to definitely fall on him to step up for his team.
So we're starting to see this 1-3-1 really emerge for Roccat. You've got Prophet in a side lane, you've got Blanc in a side lane, you're pushing in the mid. Baron is on the cards, just spawned. There's a Cloud Drake as well. Apart from just pressuring the lanes, is there any other way that Roccat can really solidify their lead?
I mean, right now, their comp is stronger. They've hit bigger spikes, they feel confident in their ability to team fight, and so forcing the Baron would not be a bad option for them. It's very early, it's risky, of course, but getting a TP out from Alphari and Mikyx, funnily enough, would be very beneficial for them, because then it much better sets you up for the 1-3-1. So they don't necessarily have to commit to the Baron, but they can use it as a tool to bait some summoner spells out, maybe get a flash here and there, and just utilize the fact that their composition right now is very strong.
And with a 7,000 gold lead, it's even further ahead than just the power of the champions individually. They did secure the Cloud Dragon for themselves. They are pinging out that Baron as well. Misfits have gained vision control around that, so we're looking at how many control wards Rockats have picked up, how many sweepers they have. They've got double sweeper, they've got... I'm trying to do the maths very quickly in my head. That's 9. 9 control wards.
That is 9, yes.
2 plus 2 plus 2 is quick maths. If you add the 3 at the end, it's 9.
Correct.
And that's how many control wards Roccat have to try and gain control of this Baron area.
Felt like really long maths, though. I feel like you took a long time to get.
Yeah, it's the third game of the day.
I mean, you do have a medical degree, so one would assume...
You don't have to do maths in medicine, thankfully.
Okay, fair. Okay, fair. Fair enough.
Have pharmacists for
clearly,
that.
I overestimated you. Let's see if we've underestimated Misfits, given that they are at a 7,000 gold deficit. They do have the scaling comp. They're waiting to see if Roccat makes that mistake, but I don't think they're going to as they look for a collapse.
Blanc onto Mikyx. There's a dazzle stun as well. Blanc's on his way, but it's just going to go back up towards that top tower. You could see Prophet was waiting in case he needed to teleport in, but he didn't. And Roccat are just going to push for some tower advantage. Look at that control. Look at the vision now for Roccat.
This is what we talked about right at the start of the game. Both these teams very good at playing around Baron. The setup for Roccat is clean. They're utilizing the strength of their comp and how much stronger they are over Misfits to just gain full vision control around the entirety of the top side of Misfits jungle. And now they can use this to either force the Baron, sneak it away, force Misfits to face check, find themselves a pick onto Misfits. The Baron setup from Roccat, once again, showing to be very clean.
Misfits do still have a couple of wards in the river, which is helping them out a lot because they know it's a very low probability that Roccat are actually doing the Baron, even though they don't have vision directly on it.
But so the thing is, Roccat have a few options here. Option number 1 is if you haven't swept out the river, you just wait 3 minutes because you know that the vision will be gone by then. or you reset, you clear through the river again, and then you lose a bit of control over the enemy jungle, but then you know, okay, we're guaranteed that this is clear. Once we gain or drop these certain control wards, then we can just go back and rush the Baron, or we can force them into a dire situation. Right now, it feels like their patience is more focused on, we're going to wait for the wards to expire. We know that we have split push threats, so we're just going to take advantage of that, and they're able to secure themselves another tower. So Roccat utilizing their comp extremely effectively right now. That's forcing Maxlore to face check a very dangerous situation. But I suppose he knows that HeaQ and Norskeren are bots, so not as dangerous as perhaps indicated before.
23.5 minutes in. There's an 8,000 gold lead for Roccat, and they're on course for almost a perfect game here as well. Only the Rift Herald goes down in Misfits' favor thus far. No tower. Looking like it's going to fall soon.
Scoreboard, Medic, so no one knows.
See, this is the thing. I think Rift Herald doesn't count towards a perfect game, but I know some people think it does count, so I had to mention it for the people who are wrong and think it counts.
That's very fair. Kind of you to consider them.
People are often incorrect, and you have to consider that in your everyday life.
That's funny, coming from you. Now, let's focus in on some of the itemization that's been completed. You can see, again, how many control wards is that, Medic? Go, quick maths.
11.
It is, in fact, 11. Good job.
Which side were you talking about? If they're both 11, that's very impressive.
Okay, let's see.
This side's 9.
Oh,
so, yeah,
but you knew I was talking about Roccat. That's the synergy I would come to expect from you. But Misfits, they're investing heavily in control. It's a big vision game right now. Always very exciting. I know Deficio's backstage, watching very closely at all the wards. And there's my favorite ward.
It's your favorite ward, Vedius. Why is it your favorite ward?
Because very rarely do people actually check it. The first rule of setting up for Baron is you put a control ward in the pit and outside the pit. And we don't have time because the fight's happening.
Profits jumps on towards Sencux here as well. Maxlore goes unstoppable for the knock-up. There's the Realm Warp, and Mikyx going to get caught out here. He's sacrificed. Roccat get another kill. 7-0 now.
Now Roccat find the pick much sooner than I was expecting them to find it. I felt like they were still setting up for the Baron, but they said, no, no, no. Misfits have overextended in the enemy jungle. This belongs to us, and we're going to use it very quickly to secure ourselves another tower and maybe even start off the Baron.
No Realm Warp here for Blanc, so he does need to be a little bit cautious as to how far he pushes forward, but Roccat want to fight in the mid lane. Alphari jumps forward onto Prophet. The flank from Norskeren can't quite connect with the Dazzle. Prophet's going to get forced away. The trap gets some damage down from HeaQ as well. They do get a top lane tower from that as well. So Roccat slowly chipping away towards Misfits base.
Roccat playing this very cleanly right now. 10,000 gold in their favor. You have to imagine that it would be very difficult for them to throw away this game. But
don't say that, Vedius. Cast accursed.
Yeah, well, we shall see. So, this is what we were talking about. Roccat, they have control over lanes. So you can see mid has been pushed up. The bot was pushed up as well, allowing Prophet to roam over to join the rest of his team. They are guaranteed to have a numbers advantage. And then as Misfits is trying to reclaim vision control, Roccat strike and secure themselves a pick. And that is exactly how you want to be utilizing this vision. Rather than go for the Baron, because they hadn't killed Maxlore, didn't want to risk the steal, they decided to go for tier 2. I think it's the safer and smarter play. And Memento showing maybe his brain isn't that small after all.
Roccat just looking so much stronger than they have in previous splits. Like, previously they would upset a team. Now they are consistently challenging the top teams, or the teams that we expected to be near the top. Deathless thus far this game. They have never in their history as an organization had a deathless game. Wow. Five times they've had one death.
But to have a deathless game against Misfits too, a team that looks very good over the last couple of weeks, except for this one. Even yesterday, they had such a significant gold lead that they very quickly threw away. I wonder if Roccat will do the same, or whether or not they can cleanly close this one out. Right now, for the time being, they're taking the time. They're utilizing the 1-through-1 comp that they have. You can see Camille still sitting down in the bottom lane. Prophet doing what he does best and acting as the split pusher. Double buff on top of him too. Level 16. Alphari really not able to deal with the amount of power this Camille does have in the 1v1.
Alphari's gone for the Warmogs on the Ornn as well, just to try and regenerate after some of those trades.
And I want to take this brief opportunity to talk to our audience about windows, because windows are...
Double glazing?
They are, but also a term in League where you have a window of opportunity to make a play. Now, just keep your... If we can pan the camera over to Prophet, what you'll notice is he's just pushed up the bottom lane, and Alphari has to clear this out, right? Because he wants to get the experience, he wants to make sure it doesn't hit the tower, and he doesn't want it to go to waste. This produces a window where Prophet can move with his team to try and make a play happen. That's how they found the earlier pick, And that's how they find other opportunities like this. Now, usually in the longer lanes, windows are more prevalent. And in this short scenario, Alphari can very quickly clear it out and join the rest of his team. But we've now seen twice Prophet use these windows to find other advantages with his team. And it's really important as a split push that you recognize when you can take advantage of these windows and when your team can look to try and make a play, because that is how you successfully play these 1-through-1s and how you're able to close out the game.
And you have to try and deny windows as much as possible. Prophet's going to jump on towards Maxlore here. There's the call of the Forge God as well. Cosmic Radiance is going to come down. We'll head up 3 members of Roccat. So they get rid of the call of the Forge God, but they've used Hextech Ultimatum and they've used the Cosmic Radiance.
Prophet got dragged into the enemy team there, didn't want that. Now they're using the Ryze ultimate to rush towards the Baron. It was pinged out by Misfits. They have a feeling it's going on.
I think they may have seen the edge of the ultimate animation on a ward that they have just around that corner, because Maxlore's on his way, 2000 HP, stunned up, but they're going to be able to burst it in time. Maxlore, elastic slingshot, jumps it, can't quite get it, Blanc secures it, Maxlore's going to go down as well, and now Prophet with the TP is caught out. Mikyx, Roccat get the Baron, they get the jungler, and they're looking for the inhibitors at least off this Baron push. Prophet's looking for a little bit more than that. He wants the kill. Ace in the hole will not connect on towards Mikyx as Alphari blocks its path.
Roccat looking so confident, utilizing the Ryze ultimate to quickly move your entire team over to the Baron, securing the objective, and now they're on track to easily break into the base of Misfits and perhaps secure themselves the win.
14,000 gold ahead. They've already taken down 1 inhibitor tower. They're looking for the inhib and maybe this top tower as well, although that wave has been cleared out. Prophet's there to buff up the minions as they join the fray, and Roccat will just back away.
Memento leading his team to victory right now. 8-0. Misfits struggling so much. And you can see that ward just about spawning out the Ryze ultimate as you identified, Medic. Maxlore tried as quickly as he could. He gets stunned up. He's still able to get into the pit, but just can't quite smite it down in time. He ends up losing his life. Mikyx gets chased down by the rest of Roccat. Oh, he is able to flash out of this dire situation, but that means that engage is going to be unavailable. And Roccat now with the mid inhibitor down can start just continuing to play the continue rather to play the 1-through-1 that they have been using so effectively in this game.
30 minutes in, 14,000 gold in favor of Roccat. Clean macro play, clean laning phase.
Good Barons.
Good Barons, good Baron control as well, which is vital.
And strong individual performers as well. I feel like everyone has been stepping up this game. No silly mistakes that we often see from Blanc, where he's just in a weird position and he tries to make a play that he shouldn't.
Strong engages as well from Memento. We saw in that mid lane fight, he got a double knockup. That was what really secured them the early portion of the game. Good smites, good control of his jungle, and trying to get into the enemy jungle as well. Roccat look like a much more cohesive team than they have in the past. This may be their split as they look to take down these inhibitors. Still a long way to go for them, of course. Prophet's going to jump onto Alphari. Blanc's here as well. Alphari with the call of the Forge God is dead as Blanc wipes him off the face of the Summoner's Rift, and the top lane inhibitor tower goes down as well. Roccat looking for 2 inhibs here if they can take them. Hansama jumps onto Prophet. Let's bounce. The Realm Warp gets them out, and Prophet survives, still deathless. Roccat continue to press forth.
They're looking for that perfect game. Roccat so close to Misfits Nexus. They have had no answer, and they're on track to securing themselves another win, tying up their score and bringing Misfits down to the middle of the pack.
And Misfits will go 0-2 this week if they do lose. Not what they would have wanted at all. There's the 3rd inhib down, still Baron buff remaining. About a quarter of that left. Roccat just pushing in with these minion waves. Nexus tower down to about a 3rd HP.
Roccat continuing the push. Stun there from Norskeren.
Memento jumps forward onto Mikyx. The tower goes down, though Memento manages to survive. Cosmic Radiance comes out on Norskeren. Mikyx in that front line, but Prophet just looking for the Nexus towers. Maxwell jumps in. Memento, Norskeren, they're all in the midst of it all, but Memento still has his stopwatch somehow. So does Norskeren. The Nexus goes down, and Roccat get the perfect game over Misfits.
Prophet and Memento don't know how to celebrate, but they don't care because smiles are on their faces. Norskeren, the biggest of them all. A perfect game over Misfits. They struggled yesterday. They did end up falling against what was a very clutch game against Vitality. Many argue that they should have been able to win it, but they bounced back. They have a cleaner performance on day 2. They net themselves the win, and they shake the standings up so much.
This is EU, everyone beats everyone. Roccat proving that moniker even more now. Everyone on that team played so well as well. Profit with the split push, Memento with the jungling, Blanc in that mid lane, and then as part of the 1-3-1, and HeaQ and the Norwegian wonder kid Norskeren in that bottom lane. See how much it means to them, and just how strong they were throughout that game is almost surprising to watch.
And a bit of an uncharacteristic performance from the bottom lane of Misfits. 0-3-0 for Hansama, 0-4-0 for Mikyx. Obviously, it wasn't entirely their fault. A lot of focus was put down onto shutting them down. But at the end of the day, they were the people that Misfits often rely on to carry. We talked about how Sencux and Hansama in this comp had to step up. They put Alphari on a tank. He wasn't in a position to shine like he normally does on things like the Gangplank. And unfortunately for them, they ended up getting shut down in the early game, and Roccat just ran away with it. And I just wonder, how could this have been different if Misfits had perhaps invested early into something like Camille, give that over to Alphari, give him that strength up in the top lane, continue to play around the conditions that have allowed them to get wins so far. But we won't be able to find out, because Roccat, they served Misfits on a platter, and they absolutely demolished them.
No, they did, and we've narrowed it down to Memento, Norskeren, and Profit in the fight for player of the game. Head over to @LOLesports on Twitter and vote on the poll. We'll find out the winner when we return for our next game. Vedius, if it was up to you, who would you give it to?
Profit. I think he had a great Camille game. His split pushing was fantastic. And I think that overall, he demonstrated a really good example of how to play in a side lane.
I can understand that. We've got two of our top contenders, Giants and Fnatic, clashing on the Rift in our next game. We'll be right back for that and an interview with HeaQ after the break. Here comes Profit onto the back line. This is going to be a double. You have to feel Hansama's dead. Mikyx flashes, but then follow up. Flashes come in, and Roccat get two.
Good job, guys.
I can tip it back, but over to the mid, but here comes an engage.
All of the force drops. Sencux is dead. HeaQ gets it, and now we're going to see Profit use the hexagon to make him get out of the fight. A double knockup. Hansama just about eking his way away, but Blanc's not going to let him escape. Chunked out Alphari. He's going to fall. Double knockout. Profit and HeaQ are on the chase here, and Alphari, even the shield can't save you now. Roccat get 4.
Yeah, go big sides.
Animation on a ward that they have just around that corner, because Maxlore's on his way. 2000 HP, stunned up, and they're going to be able to burst it in time. Maxlore, elastic slingshot, jumps in, can't quite get it. Blanc secures it. Maxlore scaring Mikyx in that front line, but Profit just looking for the Nexus towers. Maxlore jumps in. Memento, Norskeren, they're all in the midst of it all, but Memento still has his stopwatch somehow. So does Norskeren. The Nexus goes down, and Roccat get the perfect game over Misfits.